By what name are you known?
There are some who call me Tim.
Welcome to another episode of Timmy Talks, the channel where we talk old school magic. And today we are back in Arnhem for the Camel Trophy and we have reached the finals. I'm just really excited for this final match because we've got two super cool decks in my humble opinion. We have Tim who's playing mono green. I really like his deck. And he's taking on Roy. And Roy is also playing a beautiful deck. It's black and white. It's really a classical Deadguy Ale deck with cards like Jusem, Sengir Vampire. He even has a Royal Assassin in there. How cool is that? A Royal Assassin in the finals. Finally, it reminds me of the good old days. Maybe it's also nice to mention that I actually lost against Roy's deck in the semifinals, or else it would have been me here in the finals. But Roy, you beat me fair and square. He had a really big drain life at the end of game 3, so well done. And now we're going to see your deck in action again, this time against mono green. Let's see how you venture against that type of deck. But before we do, first a quick message from our sponsor, 341 Trading. 341 Trading is one of Europe's leading Magic the Gathering retailers. Their online shop has a fantastic selection of high-end Magic cards, especially for vintage, legacy, and yes, old school Magic players. They now exclusively offer my community free, fully insured, and fast worldwide shipping on all their high-end singles, full sets, and out-of-print sealed products. They upload new cards every Wednesday and have weekly sale offers and reductions waiting just for you. Use my code TIMMY to get free worldwide shipping on your first order over $500 or euros. Have fun ordering those cards, and thank you 341 Trading for sponsoring this video. And we are back and ready to dive into the deck decks, and I'm going to start with the deck of the player on the right, that is Roy. Let's take a look at his black and white deck. And here we see the deck of Roy. So this is really a Deadguy Ale deck, right? Black and white, no red splash, no blue splash. I'm really liking these type of decks. I remember as a little Timmy, whenever I would have enough dual lands of a certain color combination, I would make a deck in that color combination. So that's why I think that I've got like a special, feeling for two-color decks that kind of seem like pure to me in some kind of weird magic way. If you recognize the feeling, let me know in the comments, or maybe I'm just the only one who feels this way. But yeah, white and black. And of course, the power of especially white is that it's so easy to splash, right? And you can see that in this deck as well, because basically it is dominantly black. We're seeing 3 disenchants, 3 swords to plowshares, and of course a balance. And I mean, this is what makes white so good. The disenchant, the swords, it can solve so many problems that with other colors it's just much harder to deal with, especially if you're in black. It's so difficult to deal with an enchantment or an artifact. You usually need to start playing with Nevinyrral's discs, which we see in the sideboard, by the way. But of course, when you splash that little bit of white, your deck becomes so much versatile and flexible. So it's understandable that, black and white is such a popular color combination. Now, of course, black, that's where the meat is, right? That's the meat on the sandwich. Those are the big creatures, the important creatures. We see, of course, Jusem Jin here, 5/5 for 4. I mean, that's just huge. But also Sengir Vampire, don't underestimate that power of 4/4 for 5 flying, which is quite good as well. And of course, with black, you have access to dark rituals, meaning you can quickly ritual out those bigger creatures, including, of course, the classic play, turn 1, ritual into Hypnotic Spectre. If you don't have an answer to Hippie, you have some serious trouble. I think in this matchup, because Roy is playing against mono green, the dark ritual could be quite decisive because it's going to help him to quickly have a bigger creature out, and that's going to be really tough to deal with for the green mage. On the other hand, green is going to go so quick and has so many creatures that, for example, a card like Swords is not as powerful against the swarm strategy of Tim, of the opponent of Roy. So, I mean, there are pros and cons to the strategy, of course. Another thing that's really good for Roy is, of course, the drain life. I think drain life is quite nice, especially in this match, since mono green is running. Mono green wants to sprint to the finish as quickly as mono green can do. And that means that it doesn't want an opponent that all of a sudden gains a bunch of life. It's not even the damage that drain life can do. It's more the life that Roy can gain from the drain life that could be really decisive in this match. So yeah, this is a strong deck, a classical deck. I really enjoy seeing a deck like this in the finals. And I haven't even talked about Royal Assassin. Let's just have a look at Royal Assassin. Isn't it beautiful? By the way, this entire deck is black bordered. That is pretty impressive, Roy. Well done. Well done, my boy. Anyway, this is the deck of Roy. Now let's take a look at the deck of his opponent, Tim. And here we see the deck of the other finalist, Tim. And as we can see, it is mono green as mono green can get. And of course, we saw this deck already in the semifinals. I mean, the strength of this deck is just the consistency. Look at the amount of creatures in this deck. I mean, look at the amount of 1-drops. We've got 12 1-drops. Understandably so, 3 Pendelhavens because they were great with those 1-drops. And this is just pressure, right? Tim is going to keep playing out creatures from the start and just keep turning them sideways. Obviously, you also have your access to your Ice Storms, which are going to be really good in combination with Llanowar Elves, right? Turn 1 Llanowar Elves, turn 2 Ice Storm, the classic play. Almost, you could say almost classic play for mono green. You used to also have some mono green decks with Winter Orb, but I mean, people really prefer the Ice Storm strategy over that Winter Orb strategy. And of course, an all-star in this matchup is going to be the Whirling Dervish. Whirling Dervish is being played main in this deck of Tim, and that can actually already give him, the first victory. It's a 1/1, it's got protection from black, and every time it deals damage, it gets a +1/+1 counter. Now, do remember that, of course, Roy does have access to Swords to Plowshares, right? So that Swords could be a lifesaver for Roy against the Whirling Dervish. But yeah, I mean, what else can I say about this deck? It's green, it's super fast, it can kill you in an instant. When we're looking at the sideboard, I guess the Hurricanes are going to come in against all those flying creatures of Roy. But besides that, I don't see too many cards that are useful for Tim here in the sideboard. But yeah, this is the deck of Tim. We looked at the deck of Roy, so that means only one thing. We are ready for the finals of the Camel Trophy. Let's go! Game number 1, here we go. The finals of the Camel Trophy number 6. And we have Roy sitting on the right. He's on the play. He's playing a black and white deck. So classical Deadguy Ale, starting with a Mox Jet and a Scrubland. And he is taking on Tim, who's on the draw. Not me, by the way, another Tim. He's playing mono green. And he's starting with a Llanowar Elves. And there's, a turn 2 Hypnotic Spectre. What a great start for Roy. That means he can start attacking the hand, and Tim doesn't have any Hurricanes main. So this could be a tough creature to deal with for him. Gonna tap 3, there's an Ice Storm. Just coming a little bit too late though. He's taking care of the Scrubland. There's another Swamp, there's the attack at 2/2, so he's gonna drop to 18, but more importantly, he's gonna lose a card. What is it? A Forest, okay. That could have been a lot worse, I guess, for Tim here. His deck, of course, doesn't need a lot of mana. And are we going to see another Hypnotic Spectre from Roy here in his second main? Or is he just going to pass? Already played out a land for turn? Yeah, he's just going to pass. And now the question is, can Tim find some kind of answer to the Hypnotic Spectre? He does play with Script Sprites, so that's at least a blocker. And if he then has, for example, a Giant Growth, that could be a great solution for him. But maybe it's a big ask. Anyway, there's the Script Sprites 1/1 flyer. Going to tap another green for a Scavenger Folk. A 1/1 creature from the dark. And you can pay a green and tap it and sack it to destroy an artifact. Kind of has a building crumble, I guess. And he's going to keep that forest untapped, by the way. Choosing to tap his Llanowar Elves instead. Kind of signaling to have a Giant Growth. But does he really have a Giant Growth? That's the question. Oh, and look at this! Juzam Jin! 5/5 Powerhouse. Poster boy of old school Magic, hitting the board. Beautiful, beautiful card. There's the attack with the Hypnotic. And now the question is, are we going to see a block? And is it going to be a chump? And does Tim have a Giant Growth? Or is he just going to take 2 and lose another card? That's also an option, of course. I mean, this could be a pretty big moment in this first game. Looks like he is going to play something. There's the Giant Growth, blocking, killing the Hypnotic. Very important moment here for Tim. So dealing with the Hypnotic Spectre. Bad news for Roy, but I think the attack was the right thing to do. And now, of course, another problem for Tim, which is that huge Juzam Jin. He can, of course, fly over it with the Script Sprites. And that way, at least deal a little bit of damage. And here we see Tim tapping 2, tapping 3. Oh, and tapping Llanowar Elves. Are we going to see an Urnham? No, it's Suchi instead. 4/4 creature from Antiquities. And there's the attack with the Sprites, passing the turn. And of course, during the upkeep, Roy is getting 1 damage as well from his Juzam. Going to drop to 18. There's a Scrubland. Ooh, wanted to play something out, changed his mind, maybe first want to go into combat. Exactly, attacking here with the Juzam. It looks like Tim is just going to take the damage here. And then second main, another Juzam Jin. Wow, 2 Juzams on the table. This is a beautiful sight. I think next turn is going to be a really interesting combat to see if Tim is maybe going to double block a Juzam with the factory and the Suchi. But let's first see what he can do. Maybe he can find another Suchi or Urnham, and then he can double block with those 2 creatures. Although, of course, Urnham gives Force Walk then to one of the Juzams. Anyway, let's first see what Tim is going to do. He's going to tap a green, it seems. No, untapping again. Whirling Dervish will be quite good as well, by the way, on this board. There's the attack with the Script Sprites. Roy dropping to 17. There's another Llanowar Elves. There's a pass. And now, of course, Roy is taking 2 damage from both of his Juzams, dropping to 15. Is this a sinkhole? No, it's a Chaos Orb. A little bit out of the screen, but we can see it's a Chaos Orb. That Chaos Orb is pretty good. He can now attack, and if he double blocks, in response he can flip the orb. But then again, Tim in response can use a Scavenger Folk. And now we see Roy actually activating the Chaos Orb, kind of telling to Tim, you know what, if you want to use your Scavenger Folk, use your Scavenger Folk. That's exactly what he does. And there's the attack. 2 Juzam, super aggressive. Or are we going to see a double block? That's the question here. Is he going to drop to 3? Ooh, that sounds really low to 3. Remember, he's on 13 now. So I'm kind of expecting a double block. He could animate the factory. The risk, of course, is that there's a disenchant in hand there for Roy or a swords. Then a double block would be disastrous. But I mean, can you really take 10 damage here? I don't think you can. I think it's too much. So understandably so, Tim really in the tank here. What to do with this double attack? I mean, it's so risky to double block, but maybe you have to. Another option, of course, is just to chump block with one of the Llanowars. Take 5, go to 8. That's kind of the safe route. And the next turn, you can at least attack with a little bit more. Assuming that Roy doesn't have another creature to play out in second main. Because remember, Roy's on 15. So, you know, let's say you take the 10, drop to 3. Next turn, you can attack him for 9. Which is not enough, I know. But maybe you've got something in hand. Anyway, it looks like Tim is now seriously considering blocking. I mean, just chumping 1 doesn't seem that bad, to be honest. Then you can still attack with your Suchi. So Timmy, I believe only 1 card in hand, 2 cards in hand for Roy, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you can see him kind of flicking with those cards. He's really in the tank. What to do at this decisive moment. Remember, this is the finals, game number 1. The finals of the Camel Trophy number 6. The biggest old school tournament of Arnhem. What is he going to do? Is he going to put the Llanowar Elves here in front of the Juzam? A good old-fashioned chump block. Is that what we're going to see? Yeah, and Tim sure knows how to build up the tension. It's always a good sign for the opponent if your opponent needs so much time to think. It means that there's not really a good option. And he's trying to think, okay, what option is hurting me the least? Keeps looking at that 1 card in hand. I wonder what it is. Maybe it's a Giant Grove. But if it's a Giant Grove, it would be quite simple. You would say, okay, I'm going to block on the Suchi, play the Grove. And yes, maybe then Roy has, in response, a Swords or a Disenchant. But if he doesn't, you're going to kill one of the Juzams. So yeah, he's really not sure about what to do. Okay, finally making his move, chumping one of the Juzams, taking 5, drop to 8. I think that's a good decision. Untapping here, upkeep, draw. So he's on 8, Roy on 15. I mean, I guess you would swing in here for 7. Keep your Llanowar Elves to chump another creature. Unless you've got a better option. We don't know what he has in hand, of course. If you could hit him for 7, you put him on 8. Then he takes 2 damage from his Juzams, go to 6. I mean, he's actually closer to victory than you may expect. So Timmy, you're animating the factory. Exactly. I mean, just turn it all sideways except for the Llanowar. That's what I would do. So, of course, easy from my position here. There he goes. Attack for 7. And now are we going to see a Disenchant or Swords to Plowshares? That's the big question. I mean, if Roy here has a Disenchant on the Suchi, it's pretty much over for Tim. But if he doesn't, oh, then Roy is in a pretty difficult spot. And I guess he doesn't. Taking 7, drop to 8. There's another Llanowar Elves. Taking 2 more damage now from his Juzams in his upkeep. Dropping to 6. Oh, it's getting tougher for Roy. I wonder what those cards in hand are. Could it just be lands? Second Scrubland being played out. There's so many cards that could help him here. But not the Gemde Tome. It's not one of the cards you want to hit at this point in the game. Passing the turn here, not even attacking. Oh, this is really bad news for Roy. Really bad news. And now, of course, he can attack with the Flyer. Going to put him on 5. Exactly. And there's another Script Sprites. Ooh, that's bad. Going to drop to 3 because of the Juzams. Another Swamp. It's going to draw a card. Oh, it's in desperation mode. Is he going to lose this? 2 Swamps in hand, showing him his hand. That's it. Winning game 1 here for Tim. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So I guess Roy was really stuck on lands there. There were so many cards in his deck that could have saved him. Disenchant, Swords, Sengir Vampire, Drain Life. But this is Magic. Sometimes you just cannot find those cards. Anyway, both players are going to dive into their sideboards and we will catch back up with them in game number 2. Game number 2 here. Roy on to play after losing that first one. He needs to win it to stay here in the finals. And of course, if Tim wins this game, he is going to be the champion of Camel Trophy number 6. And there is a Black Knight played by Roy. 2/2 first striker, protection from white. And a very good card against the deck here of Tim, I think. There's the animate. He can, of course, pump it now. So that means Roy is probably just going to take the damage here. Going to drop to 17. There's a pass turn. I wonder if Roy can find his Royal Assassin, because that would be quite good in this matchup as well. There's another Black Knight. And this basically stops Tim from attacking. There's a strip mine being used on one of the factories. And interestingly so, Tim hasn't played out a single force. Has, of course, a Llanowar Elves and the Mox Emeralds, so doesn't really have to. There we see the first force. Whirling Dervish. Oh, this is tough. This is a kick in the privates for Roy. Needs to find or a mace or a white source and a Swords to Plowshare. So it does have some answers. But it's going to be tough. Okay, this is an answer actually. There's the Mishra's Factory being played out. That's a great answer for Roy. It's all the way on the right side of the screen there. But we can see a beautiful Winter Factory. And a perfect answer to the Whirling Dervish. Remember, Whirling Dervish, a card from Legends. Protection from black. And every time it deals damage, it's a 1/1. It gets a +1/+1 counter. And there's 2 more green. And there's the Argovian Pixies. Argovian Pixies great against the factory, but of course not so good against the Black Knights. Here we see a Scrubland. So it looks like Roy has got it pretty much under control. And there we see the Hypnotic Spectre. So again, it's looking quite good for Roy. And I wonder if Tim has boarded in the 2 Hurricanes from the sideboard. But now, of course, Roy can attack because the Mishra's Factory is tapped here. So that means Roy's going to drop to a 16, I believe. Okay, I'm not quite sure if... Okay, there's the Swords to Plowshares. I believe Oh yeah, Roy was on 17. He should actually still be on 17. Not sure why he's on 18. But anyway, here we see the Llanowar Elves being played out and another forest and a pass. It's looking really good for Roy here. There's the attack, exactly Hypnotic. And Tim losing his last card in hand, which is just a forest. Yeah, and Tim needs something good. Gonna draw his card for turn. I mean, if you can find like an Urnum, that would be useful. And I guess a Giant Grove could be quite good as well. Okay, here's an Urnum. So 4/5 creature from Arabian Nights. During your upkeep, you have to give Forest Walk to a creature of your opponent. But you can just give Forest Walk to the Hypnotic Spectre because you can block it anyway. There's the attack. So Tim dropping here to 17. There's another Swamp for Roy. Can Roy do something else here? Nope, he can. Just passing the turn here to Tim. Giving Forest Walk here to the Hypnotic. So that's not a +1/+1 counter, but just a dice to indicate that the Hippie now has Forest Walk. Not very relevant at the moment. So I'm kind of expecting Timmy to attack with the Urnum. Because, that's going to be tough to deal with for Roy. Of course, Roy could consider double blocking, putting the Mishra's Factory and then a Black Knight in front, and then the factory can pump itself. Or he's got, yep, there we see the Sword Supply Share. So the Swords, of course, the card that he really missed in that first game. He's finding enough swords now, already played out 2. So that does mean 4 more life here for Tim, but it's not going to matter much. Okay, look at this. Is going to play a Giant Grove on it. Yeah, and that's understandable that he does that, because if he doesn't, he's going to lose it anyway. Could have considered also animating the Mishra's Factory and attacking with the factory. Then the Giant Grove maybe would have had a little bit of value when you had 2 creatures to as a potential target for it. Anyway, there's the attack with the Hippie. Tim dropping here to 22. And there's another Hypnotic Spectre all the way on the right. Unfortunately, a little bit out of our screen, but we know it's another 2/2 flyer. And yeah, Roy is really, really in a good position here. He can start attacking for 4 every turn now, having those 2/2 flyers. And it's looking quite bad here in game number 2 for Tim. And remember, Tim only has 1 card in hand. He's in top decking mode. Going to tap 3. We're going to see an Ice Storm, I guess. Kind of hard to see. But yeah, Ice Storm here on the Mishra's Factory. Yeah, this is far from ideal. There's the attack for 4. Tim in a really bad position here, which is great for Roy. Of course, remember, Roy is down in game. Needs to win this to stay in the finals. I think that's a Demonic Tutor in hand or not. But if it was a tutor, he would have played it out already. So I guess it's something else. Anyway, there's another Argovian Pixies. Yeah, all these creatures don't do much. Those Black Knights are really good for Roy. There's the untap. Good swing in for 4. It's going to tap 4 first. What are we going to see? Okay, there's an Icy Manipulator. There's the attack for 4. He's going to drop to 14. There's the pass. Yeah, it's looking really good here for Roy. There's another Argovian Pixies. Yeah, not really what you want. No cards in hand for Tim. It's not looking good for him. And of course, on end step, probably Roy's going to tap something, exactly tapping the factory. Why not? Okay, there's a Juzam there from the top. There's the attack for 4. It's going to drop to 10, I believe. Is he now going to play out the Juzam? I mean, you might as well do it, right? Start attacking. Nope, he doesn't. Just passing the turn. Going to keep it in hand. Perhaps worried about some kind of board wipe, although I'm not quite sure what you have to be worried about. I mean, if he finds a Hurricane, he's going to play it out, and it doesn't hit the Juzam anyway, so I think I would have played out the Juzam here, but maybe Roy has his reasons not to. There's the untap. There's the attack for 4. So he's going to drop to 6, I guess. There's a Soul Ring. Still 2 cards in hand for him. Gonna tap the Soul Ring and a black. Okay, so he did have a Demonic Tutor in hand. I mean, I would think Drain Life here, to be honest. Could also go for Sengir Vampire. That's more like a style point move. But Drain Life seems to be quite tempting here because you can drain for 1, you can drain for 5 next turn. And that's it. Tim actually picking up the card, so we'll never know what he tutored for. Pretty sure it's a Drain Life. Anyway, both players are going to shuffle up now, and Roy won here game 2, which is really great because it means we're going to go to an all-deciding game number 3. Game number 3, the big decider with Tim with mono green on the play, which is a pretty big deal. We see on the right side, by the way, the hand of Roy a little bit. We see a Ivory Tower in that hand. That's quite an interesting card coming in from the sideboard, I think. Here we see Tim starting with Mox Emerald and a Forest. There's a Llanowar Elves in the pass. So I wonder if we're going to see the Ivory Tower here. Yeah, of course we are. All the way on the right side, though. Hard for us to keep up with. Roy, of course, on 20 exactly. He's going to start gaining life. That tower could be a really good inclusion in the deck. And I wonder what Tim is going to do here on his turn 2. There's an attack for 1 first. And there we see an Argovian Pixies and a pass. So missing a land drop here. And Roy here going to 21, which is quite nice for him. There's another scrub and a pass. And here we see another forest. Are we going to see a big 4 drop from Tim? There's the attack for 2 first. So he's going to drop to 19. Is he going to play an Urnum or a Suchi? There's a Suchi 4/4. We're going to see a Disenchant here. First, of course, some life gain here for Roy. It's going to go back up to 20, it seems. There's a Disenchant in hand, by the way. There's a City of Brass. Nope, taking it back. Going to play a Factory instead. Of course, the Argovian Pixies is a great answer to that Factory. Remember, it cannot be blocked by artifacts. And I guess we're going to see that Disenchant being shot at the Suchi now during combat here of Tim. There's a Pendelhaven. Okay, the Pendelhaven is quite good because it means he can also attack with the Llanowar here. Remember, the Factory still has Summoning Sickness. There's the attack here. Are we going to see the Disenchant on the Suchi? That's exactly what we're seeing here. There's the Disenchant. Probably going to take 4. Actually not using the Pendelhaven to pump the Llanowar. Instead playing out more pressure. There's an Urnum. And Roy going back up to 18 because of the Ivory Tower. I think if you're Roy, you really want to have maybe a balance here to clear the board. Although then you also kind of play a Mind Twist on yourself. That's the other side, of course, of balance. He's going to tap 2. He's going to go for Demonic. So this is the big question. Is he going to go for balance? It looks like the best play to make here, right? Because then you're going to destroy all the creatures on the side of Tim. But like I said, you also will have to discard down to the hand size of Tim. Tim only having 2 cards in hand. So it's not ideal. Maybe he has a better option. Doesn't need to think for long, it seems. I'm going to look at his hand, though. What is that one card? I couldn't see it. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a balance. Yeah, made up his mind, shuffling up here. Let me know in the comments what kind of card would you look for in this situation when you're playing with Roy's deck. Yep, there's the balance, exactly. I mean, does seem like the best choice. Because you're going to kill 3 creatures here on the side of Tim, which is huge. But again, like I said, you're going to have to discard a lot of cards. There's a Nevinyrral's Disc and a Jayemdae Tome. And of course, losing a land as well. Going to keep 2 cards in hand here. There's a Scavenger Folk. There's a pass. Okay, there's another land. Going to take a damage. Going to go to 17. But there's a Juzam. That's huge. Juzam Jin, 5/5 powerhouse. Hitting the board here. That's a big problem for Tim. Game number 3 of the finals of the Camel Trophy number 6. The winner takes it all. There's the pass. Tim doing nothing. Good news for Roy. Roy dropping to 16, of course, because of his own Juzam Jin. Is he going to animate the Mishra's Factory in that way, kind of inviting? Yeah, but why would he? Because if he animates... oh, there's a Royal. I love this board state, by the way. Jusam Jin, a Royal Assassin. Making it a 2-3. Are we going to see a Giant Grove here? There's a Giant Grove. Wow. Killing the Jusam Jin with the Scavenger Folk. That is pretty cool. And what I wanted to say, of course, it doesn't make sense at all for Roy to attack with the 2-2 because of that Pendelhaven and Scavenger Folk there on the side of Tim. But that was a really cool kill here by Tim. But the problem remains that there is now a Royal Assassin on the other side of the table. So it's going to be really tough for Tim to attack here. I guess what he needs is a Whirling Dervish, but then he still needs a way to get rid of the Mishra's Factory. Which, of course, he can with the Scavenger Folk as soon as Roy would animate it. Anyway, let's first see what Tim is going to do here. He's going to tap 3, it seems, or 2. 3 green. It's going to be an Ice Storm, perhaps. Okay, there's an Ice Storm on the factory. Makes sense. Passing the turn here now. Roy in top decking mode, by the way. And I believe Tim has 2 cards in hand after the draw here. Going to tap 2. Are we going to see a Whirling Dervish? That's the big question. There's a Whirling Dervish. This is the card that Roy doesn't want to see. There's a Strip Mine. There's a pass. Can Roy find an answer to this? Tapping 2. Okay, there is a Black Knight. That's not an answer. And remember, Tim, of course, has the Pendelhaven. There's the attack. First damage. And now, of course, it's going to get a counter on it. It's going to become a 2-2. He could have pumped it up as well with the Pendelhaven, but didn't. Kind of a missed opportunity here. Passing the turn. Or maybe he wants to keep the Pendelhaven untapped to block the Black Knight if Roy attacks, but I think I would play it more aggressively. There's the pass, nothing by Roy. So the Whirling is now a 2-2. If he doesn't have a Swords, he can just attack, keep attacking with it, and it keeps growing. There's the attack. Oh, dropping to 13. Going to become a 3-3, another Whirling Dervish. Oh, Tim, please don't forget to add the counter to your Whirling Dervish. You're in the finals, my man. Exactly, remember, please. Now he's going to untap, and Roy still passing turn, not finding answers to the Dervishes. This could end up disastrous for Roy here. There's the attack, both Whirling Dervishes getting into the red zone. Roy dropping to 9. Oh, even going to 8. Oh, this is really bad for him. Passing the turn. So now he has a 2-2 and a 4-4. I mean, this goes so quick. After this, Roy only has 1 more turn to find an answer to these Whirling Dervishes. 2 problems on the board now for him. Oh, this is really, really tough for Roy. There's another factory. There's the attack. Oh, he's going to drop to 3. There's the Giant Grove. That's it. Wow. Tim winning here with the Whirling Dervish. Winning the Camel Trophy number 6. Congratulations, Tim. You are the winner of the tournament here in Arnhem. And of course, also a big congrats to Roy for being the runner-up here of the Camel Trophy number 6. It's been an absolute great event. It's been a joy to look back at these games and also to play in it myself. It really was a lot of fun. Also a shout out to the Spellenkwartier on the Steenstraat in Arnhem. Thank you guys for hosting this tournament. And of course to Björn, the organizer of this event. Thank you, Björn. You do the Camel Trophies at least once a year, and I'm almost always there. I really love your events. For now, for you, the viewer, thank you very much for watching. Before you go, please take a moment to like, share, and comment on this video. This is all free and really helps the channel move forward. And of course, I would just love to hear from you. Let me know how you feel about this finals, how you feel about the Camel Trophy. Would you go to tournaments like this if something was organized in your own area? Please let me know in the comments below. And of course, before you go, I would like to inform you about the fact that I also have my very own Patreon page. Check out patreon.com/TimmyTalks for more information about that and find out how you can become a patron of the show. I would really appreciate it, and I could use all the support because the patrons is actually what keeps this channel running. Talking about that, let's take a look at the end scroll with all our fantastic patrons and channel members in it.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Early in the morning, way hey and up she rises. Way hey and up she rises. Way hey and up she rises. Early in the morning, putting in the longboat until he's sober. Putting in the longboat until he's sober. Putting in the longboat until he's sober. Early in the morning, way hey and up she rises. Way hey and up she rises. She rises early in the morning. Pull out the plug and wet him all over. Pull out the plug and wet him all over. Pull out the plug and wet him all over. Early in the morning. Way hey up she rises. Way hey up she rises. Way hey up she rises early in the morning. What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Put him in the scout to the hook, my son. Put him in the scout to the hook, my son. Put him in the scout to the hook, my son. Early in the morning, way hey up she rises, way hey up she rises, way hey up she rises early in the morning.
Igitus figitus sumba kazee.